That 60 Minutes itself and CBS itself is now completely MAGA. I don't see it that way.
They all pulled out.
This is a question about what looks best for the Democrats, because I don't think that looks good. It looks like you are just what people say about you. I watch 60 Minutes every week. I had since I was a kid. If I didn't hear all the buzz in the media, if I didn't read about it all the time, would I ever notice that it was any different? I don't think I would.
Bill Maher repeatedly shut down Democratic Senator Chris Murphy's claim that Trump is somehow hijacking 60 Minutes just to tell his story. On CBS, and no matter which direction Chris Murphy tried to take the conversation, Bill Maher kept getting in his way and forcing him back to reality. Trust me, this is one of the best examples of fake news media rumors getting shut down by one of their own. But before I show you that clip, people need to understand who Chris Murphy really is. Because this is the same guy who went on live television after Biden's disastrous debate and tried to convince everyone that Biden was still the better candidate.
Joe Biden didn't have a great night last night. Donald Trump had a terrible night last night. I think voters care about substance. I don't think they only care about style. I think Donald Trump was rambling and hard to follow last night. Well, Joe Biden has won a whole bunch of primaries when voters had a choice between him and a younger candidate. And I think most voters have already priced in the fact that both of our candidates are old. But, you know, for Joe Biden, with age comes experience as well. And you had in front of the country yesterday a president who cares about us, who cares about making sure that the office is conducted in a dignified way, and President Trump, who was as reckless and irresponsible as ever. You can't run a country, you can't run a civilization when truth doesn't matter. And the fact that the conversation today is more around the style of Joe Biden's answers instead of the absolute cataclysmic level of lying and fabrication being done by Donald Trump, I just think is a real sad statement on our politics today.
Chris Murphy's break with reality happened a long time ago. And honestly, you have to wonder about the people who keep voting for him, because how do they not see what everyone else can clearly see? This man has become one of those designated Democratic talking heads they send to every show and every camera, because somehow they can say anything with a straight face and feel zero embarrassment. And now he has the audacity to claim that Trump is turning America into a censorship state. Let's watch this.
What do you think of the shakeup at 60 Minutes? Big controversy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're watching a censorship state be created. Trump is using the powers that he has available as president of the United States to install only friendly ownership at the big media companies. He's using regulatory powers to punish people who oppose him.
That's a big charge that you just made. That 60 Minutes itself and CBS itself is now completely MAGA. I don't see it that way.
It's not completely MAGA.
Well, that's kind of what you said.
But he is clearly intent
yes.
on installing people who will tell his story,
of course,
and will keep his critics off the air.
But let me ask you this question. I watch 60 Minutes every week. I've had since I was a kid. If I didn't hear all the buzz in the media, if I didn't read about it all the time, would I ever notice that it was any different? I don't think I would.
Yeah, it's not just 60 Minutes, and part of it is that you don't know what they choose not to. You don't know what they choose not to air.
That's true too.
Part of what the allegation is that they are killing stories that would be embarrassing for the president. So it's hard to know what you're missing in a censorship environment.
But I've seen ones that are not very favorable to the president.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I would have noticed any different if I hadn't been reading about it. Also, I just don't think being a 60 Minutes correspondent is that hard. I don't feel like Scott Pelley was a national treasure. Companies change hands all the time. I never liked them, sorry, I just never did. Companies change hands. People bring in their own people, their new ownership. You know, just because something changes doesn't mean. I feel like we see everything through such a partisan lens. Oh my God, 60 Minutes has a new cast. So does Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, but Bill, it's not just 60 Minutes, right? I mean, they took down his chief late night critic. CBS News at 6:30 does sound and feel different.
Trust me,
this is not just about 60 Minutes.
I feel it too.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm part of it. I get it. But we're just talking about 60 Minutes now. But yes, I agree. He's a danger to media. He's a danger to freedom of speech. But just 60 Minutes, I don't know. I mean, and I'm not going to make that decision until I see until I see a smoking gun, like something like, oh, wow. Now we're tick, tick, tick. Candace Owens and Alex Jones on 60 Minutes.
I must say, this man is suffering from a serious case of TDS, because he keeps creating these delusions and expects everyone else to follow along like it makes sense. But I do not think that is going to work anymore, because he is accusing the right of doing the exact thing the left has been doing for years. He wants to talk about censorship now, but where was this energy when his own party was pushing people off platforms, silencing opinions, pressuring media companies, and labeling everything they disagreed with as dangerous misinformation? And if Chris Murphy has forgotten what censorship actually looks like, let me remind him using examples from his own side.
You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda, and whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
If people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block. It's really hard to govern today.
This is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
The First Amendment is not absolute. It does not protect any single thing anyone says. And there are limits, and that's important. And what this committee has been trying to do for the last year and a half is to chill the federal government from monitoring what is going on social media.
When you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't.
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways.
But if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm.
And it is not just this. The left is now panicking because one of their own legacy media platforms is starting to show a little bit of common sense, and they are losing control of the world they built. And just for comparison, watch how 60 Minutes treated Obama and Kamala compared to how they treated Trump. The difference tells you everything.
Less than half the audience. Yeah, look at that. I mean, 8.6 million, 6.3 million for NBC, and then you got to go all the way down to below 4 million for the CBS Evening News. So if a team is losing over and over again, you got to change the general manager and even the owner, and that's what CBS has done.
So, Joe, people have come up to me and say, well, I didn't see the bias at 60 Minutes. You went out of your way to notice it and then maybe put a collage together, a montage for the audience.
A mixtape, as it were, since we're talking VCRs at this point. Watch this.
But I understand, Mr. President, this was your idea. Why did you want to do this? There's no political tea leaves to be read here. How would you characterize your relationship right now? I have to ask you, what's the date of expiration on this endorsement?
Oh, Steve, I
have to ask that question. I mean, come on.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done.
You started with me. You're president. Excuse me, Leslie, you started with me. Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions? That's no way to talk. I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people. Horrible people. You should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I was never, excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead. Let's finish the interview.
The other thing that he wrote
reading the exact words from the would-be assassin wrote back as if to give the assassin 60 minutes time.
Precisely, which Mike Wallace would have never done.
Right.
Exactly. That is crazy. And now watch how they treated Sleepy Joe. Because when Biden walked into those same legacy media spaces, it was a completely different game. The questions were softer, the tone was calmer, and the whole interview felt like it was designed to protect him, instead of challenge him.
By the way, we've also reduced the debt. We reduced the deficit by $350 billion my first year. This year, it's going to be over $1.5 trillion reduce the debt. So to continue to put people in a position to be able to make a decent living and grow.
Nothing complicated here. Just pay attention to what he says and listen to the tone of the interview. Now compare that to how they prepare questions for any conservative. The moment someone on the right sits down, it is no longer a conversation. It becomes an interrogation.
Ambassador Bolton is a frequent critic
Sure.
of President Trump's. He's also on Kash Patel's enemies list. The administration has already revoked his security clearance, Secret Service protection. Is Ambassador Bolton being targeted because he's a critic of President Trump? This looks a lot like retribution. Is this retribution? Are the Russians stringing President Trump along? This week, Russia targeted an American factory in Ukraine. There were 600 people inside at the time. No one was killed.
I don't
was
like
that
it,
not a slap
Kristen.
in the face
I
to the
don't
peace
like
process?
it.
China is actually the largest buyer of Russian oil.
They're
Why no
close. They're
sanctions on
about
China?
equal.
Why no sanctions on China? Does it give China a green light to invade Taiwan? Does it give Russia a green light to invade other European countries, which is what your European allies are concerned about? If President Trump's agenda is so popular, why do Republicans need to add additional seats to the map? The administration deployed the National Guard to D.C. To crack down on crime. You visited with them this week.
Yep.
At least 6 Republican states are sending in their own National Guard troops as reinforcement. But many of these states have cities that actually have crime rates that are worse than Washington, D.C. So why aren't these states sending National Guard troops into their own states to deal with the crime issue?
Crime has dropped over 35% in the nation's capital in 10 days because of what Donald J. Trump
So is
has
that
done.
mission accomplished?
I think that there's so much more that we could do. Absolutely not. It's not mission accomplished.
Do you see yourself as the apparent future of the MAGA movement?
No, I see myself as a vice president who's trying to do a good job for the American people.
And just to remind Chris Murphy, since he wants to talk about censorship and Trump supposedly bending the media, what does he have to say about this? Because this is the same CBS 60 Minutes that edited Kamala Harris's answer to make her sound more competent than she actually did in the original response. So when Democrats get protected by legacy media, they call it journalism. But when Trump gets a chance to tell his side, suddenly it becomes propaganda, censorship, and the end of democracy. That is the double standard Bill Maher is calling out.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But when it comes to Trump, look at how differently they handled it. Instead of giving people the full context, they trimmed the segment in a way that made Trump look bad and framed him like he was the one responsible for the government shutdown.
And all we're saying, give us an extension, we'll work it out. They've lost their way. They become crazed lunatics. And all they have to do, Nora, is
This
say,
is what they aired.
Let's vote.
Senate Democrats say they will vote to reopen the government if Republicans agree to extend subsidies for over 20 million Americans who use Obamacare for their health insurance.
All we're saying, give us an extension, we'll work it out. They've lost their way. They become crazed lunatics. And all they have to do, Nora, is say, let's vote. And you can the economy could open up during our interview.
Is there something you can do, though? Is there something you can do to bring this to an end?
All I can do is give the facts. Here's what I can't do. I can't give them $1.5 trillion so that they can give welfare to people that came into our country illegally, so that prisoners and that people from mental institutions and people that are drug dealers get vast amounts of money for health care. That I can't do.
Wow. I understand, and there are some examples in this interview where they just omitted some portion of the interview. They have to edit it down for time. I get that. But in some cases, you get it. You go, okay, maybe this subject repeated themselves, or maybe it wasn't relevant to the question asked. In this case, Donald Trump is listing the reason for the shutdown. And by the way, that reflects popular opinion now, in spite of the legacy media, not because of the legacy media, where they blame the Democrats for it. But you do have people in this country who go, we've shut down the government because of Republicans, because of Donald Trump. They want to shut this down. Mm-hmm. They don't know about this at all. You wonder why you have two different Americas? Well, maybe look to legacy journalism and you have an answer.
And what is crazy is that Chris Murphy knows exactly how much of the legacy media has been controlled by the far left for years, but he still has the audacity to accuse Trump of controlling the media. Meanwhile, the American people have watched this happen in real time. They watched how these networks interviewed Trump, how they edited the clips, how they changed the narrative, and how they protected Democrats whenever it helped their side. So when Chris Murphy talks about media control, he is not exposing Trump. He is exposing his own hypocrisy. Thank you for watching this. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments, and hit that like and subscribe button to support my channel.